Sisters. Hang on. Okay, did you hear that?
Yep, I'm got it right now.
Okay, great. Did they not have a bigger microphone there for you at the store, Ozzie?
You know, my laptop, the mic is so crappy, and so I was like, you know what, this deserves the best. I'm breaking out the good stuff just for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. You look great.
You as well.
Thank you. You sound great. Of course, you likely haven't seen me in, I'm gonna guess, maybe 5 or 6 years.
Has it been that long?
Well, I think the last time would have been when we worked together, unless we ran into somebody or ran into each other somewhere along the line in LA. But the last time we worked together on Mrs. Fitzgerald would have been about 2018.
It was pre-pandemic for sure.
Yeah.
You're probably right then. Wow.
I know it.
Wow.
So you haven't, see, I'm setting myself up here. You haven't seen me unless, of course, you've been treating yourself to some of my films and television shows that are readily available. So I know, but you probably needed to take a break. But I've certainly been seeing a lot of you on television in some very, very recognizable commercials.
Oh, a few here and there, yeah.
A few here and there. The one that I think of that I see the most is the cruise lines commercial.
That's the newest one, yeah.
Okay, great. So I've been seeing that, and I also know that in that same commercial, is it Shaquille O'Neal, basketball star, former Lakers, running around in there somewhere.
He is. You know, the funny thing is he is there, but we did not work together. That was green screened.
Right.
It makes me mad because that is the third commercial I've done with Shaquille O'Neal that we don't directly work together, but are in the same.
Wow.
So, but I'm putting it out there, Shaquille, if you're watching.
Come on, Shaquille. Come on.
Do this, finally,
Obviously, the casting folks must think there's a little bit of gold there by having you at least appear in the same commercial together. Because, obviously, Shaq brings what he brings, but you obviously bring what you bring. And before I forget, and I always get, I don't want to say nobody yells at me for this, but I always forget to give my introduction. So let me do that, Ozzie, if you don't mind.
Do it.
Okay. This is the Dave Bean is a C-List Actor podcast. I am your eponymous host. Eponymous, it's just a word I love. It just means if your name is the same, if the character is the same as in the title, like Tom Sawyer is in the book, Tom. Anyway, I just like saying eponymous, okay? So it's the Dave Beats, the C-List Actor Zoomcast with my very special guest star. His name is Ozzie Rodriguez. If you're not familiar with him, Ozzie is, I'm going to go down the hyphens. In the old days, it would be like you'd have like one hyphen. He was an actor, a writer. He was an actor, producer, director. So Ozzie's an actor, whether that be comedy or drama. Ozzie is a sketch artist, whether that be writing or performing. Ozzie's a voiceover artist, whether that be in English or Spanish, in commercials or audiobooks, television, film. I'm sick of it already. I'm just sick of it. You're just
a lot of slashes, yeah.
That to me is pretty tremendous, Ozzie. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad came from Cuba, my mom from Puerto Rico. I would have been born in New Jersey, actually, Weehawken, New Jersey, but my folks left just a few months before I was born, moved down to Miami, and had a duplex down there with my grandparents, and that's where I was born. So I became Miamian. If
that's very interesting to me. So there is a little bit of the Jersey boy in you.
Oh God, through my mom for sure.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, you got some chutzpah, or you got some cojones, or you know.
Yeah. I know what a good deli sandwich should taste like.
Right, and you know what a good deli sandwich is. That's great. I wish we had some good deli. If you don't, I relocated to New Mexico about a year ago, and I live in Albuquerque. I'm still looking for a good deli sandwich around here. So my quest continues. If you want your chilies, if you want your New Mexican cuisine, which is fantastic, this is the right place. But you know, I was born in Boston, but I lived in LA for 37 years. I'm just used to having deli everywhere.
Gosh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, so I'm still trying to seek it out. What was the very, if you, it doesn't have to be the very first thing, but obviously, again, going back to all the hyphenates, all the things that you do, what was one of your early influences where you said, you know what, I need to be up on the stage or, you know, on screen doing this? What were your early influences?
Wow. My mom will probably laugh at this because she's gonna be listening. But she'll be like, she'll know exactly the moment because I remember the moment. She'll tell you too. Um, I was about four, maybe going on five, but I just remember watching the making of Thriller, you know, where John Landis had his whole, you know, behind the scenes and all the
Sure,
makeup and
absolutely.
choreography. Yeah, it was such a big thing too, and I had it on beta. Of
Yeah.
all things, Betamax. I don't know if I'm dating myself now, mentioning beta, but no,
Oh, that's okay. You want to date yourself, Ozzy? You're saying you were, how old were you when you were watching the make? You said 4 or 5 years old?
about 4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was about 30 when Thriller came out. So let's, you know,
So you bought the jacket yourself, pretty much.
I bought into the whole thing. I bought into the whole thing. In the one glove.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
yeah, yeah. So it was the making of Thriller, John Landis. Wow.
It was, and I just remember watching it and turning to my mom and saying, I want to do that. And she
Yeah,
looked at me, she's like, you want to be Michael Jackson? I was like, well, no, not necessarily. I want to do all the stuff that goes into that. Like, everything that came up, I wanted to do, whether it was the makeup or the choreography or the direction or the storyboarding, whatever they shot. I just knew that I wanted to be part of the creative process of making something that wasn't real. I knew early on that it wasn't real. I wasn't scared of it,
right,
but
right.
I knew it was a story that was being told, and it was a long form music video that
Yeah,
I was like, I just want to do that, whatever that
yeah,
is. I just want to
yeah.
be a part of that world. Um, I didn't waste a lot of time with Sesame Street or any of that stuff. That was what I wanted to do.
Right,
Then my parents shut me down pretty early. Like that wasn't a dream for
yeah,
people in my culture. That's something
right,
you don't
right.
aspire to those things. But
Right. What was it? And let me, if you don't mind me asking that. So the creative arts within your family and within your culture would not, and it's the same thing in my culture as well. Was kind of, I kind of had a similar response. So, but if you had expressed that you wanted a life in the creative arts, it wasn't encouraged,
not at all.
correct? Yeah.
No, no. I mean, and so it wasn't. It was encouraged, but not as a business. You don't make money that way. You don't make money for
Right,
your
right.
family in that sense. My grandmother was a singer, so
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, I mean, she's older now. God bless her. She's about 91, but
Oh, wow.
she used
Fantastic.
to sing back in the days,
Yeah.
and she would sing us to sleep. She's beautiful, beautiful,
Wow.
gorgeous voice.
Yeah.
My grandfather also used to sing in the army. So we were all sort of performers in a sense. I actually have an
Right.
uncle in Cuba who is my grandmother's brother. He has
Right.
his own variety show on the radio. So he does like,
Wow.
yeah. I don't know the guy, but
Right. Right.
there is that it carries through our family, I feel, but
Yeah,
never,
it's kind of in your it's kind of passed down in your DNA. A lot of this stuff
yeah.
is I also I had and I didn't find this out until I was well into my career, but my dad had his first cousin, so it would be my first cousins once removed. Sidney Davis was an Academy Award nominated screenwriter
Oh my
back
God.
in like the 40s, and his brother, Sidney and Jerry Davis, was worked over at MGM with their orchestra doing the on the soundtracks for movies back in like the 40s.
Wow.
So now again, I didn't know them. They said they passed a long time ago. But again, to me, when I heard this, it just made perfect sense. I was like, okay, I couldn't have been the only one in my family who had this kind of artistic, desire and clearly that was the case for you.
I think we're all, yeah. And like for yourself, as in my family too, we were all just storytellers, and we just
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
find that proper channel to kind of express our stories. And
yeah,
this was my way. Um,
yeah.
all the
What
hype.
was what was the first way? What was the first way? So we see Thriller, and by the way, when you watch Thriller, I mean, Michael Jackson, of course, but the narrator of the story is a great actor.
Vincent Price, right?
Price from
Yeah.
when I was growing up, Vincent Price was like one of the scariest. He was like the king of the horror movies, but he was a fine actor, just a fantastic actor. So when he showed up in a music video, and the second you heard his voice, because it's so distinctive, you're like, Vincent Price, Michael Jackson, crazy. My head almost exploded. It was fantastic. But what was the first thing then, whether it be, song, dance, acting, writing, whatever, where you kind of took a little deep dive into it, even if you were a child? What did you do? What was the first thing, if you can remember, or one of
Yeah.
the
I mean, as a kid, my parents would let me do things in school, so small mini school plays, and whether it was like a church event or something where you were putting on a pageant of some sort, they
right,
would let me be involved, and they were okay with that. That was always just more community based.
right,
My mom would probably describe me as annoying because I would go over my lines over and over and over.
right.
So very, very early on, I was developing technique, but, but I think maybe around high school, around there, things were getting a little more serious about what direction I was going to go in my life,
Yeah,
and that obviously was not going to be one of those ways. So I told my parents, maybe I'll just study medicine and go in that direction.
right.
Um, but I quickly changed that. So my first year and a half in college, I changed my major without telling my parents to theater.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. Wow,
Yeah, they weren't
wow.
happy.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I had a very similar experience in that initially, when I went to college, I was a criminal justice major because I thought, and I told everybody when I was in high school, I'm going to be a cop. That's what I want to be, as a cop. And so I chose a college specifically because they had a criminal justice program. And then when I started delving into the profession. Oh, hey, 1 second. That is, just wanted to make sure it wasn't my manager. I have like one of the last of the old timey Hollywood managers, Sidney Mermelstein. If you ever watch Broadway Danny Rose, you'll know the guy. He represents like me and some guy who talks to cockatoos. But anyway, so
Wow.
we'll we'll
I
get back
love
with
that
him.
name, by the way.
So,
Marmalstein. That's, yeah.
yeah, it definitely speaks of an era But anyway, so I chose the school because they had a criminal justice program, and two things happened. I started just hanging around. I don't know how it happened, just centrifugal force. Whatever the magnets pulled me over to the theater department. I started doing some plays there, even though I was still a criminal justice major. And then uh, as I delved a little deeper into criminal justice, I learned what the thing was: is I didn't really want to be a cop. I wanted to be a cop on TV.
Oh my God. That you'd be a great cop too, by the way.
There, I appreciate that. I've been privileged enough to be able to play a whole bunch of them. But that was the kind of the change to me. So I just changed my major, not to theater, but to something that I enjoyed. But then I started performing. So very, very similar story. So you actually changed your major, went right over into theater. So
I did. And I told my mom the same exact thing you just said. I said,
yeah,
I don't want to be the doctor. I want to play the guy who's playing the doctor. Like, I want to
right.
be that guy. And
Yeah,
she didn't get it, my mom at
no,
first,
they don't. They don't get it.
they don't, they get it now. So,
Yeah.
not to make them sound like they're still an obstacle or something or a hindrance,
No, no,
not
no.
at all. But back then, I think they're
Yeah.
only really looking out for you and how your future is going to pan out. And, are you going to still be living with me when you're 40, kind
Right.
of thing.
They want to make sure you're able to pay the bills
Yeah.
and that you can have a nice place to live. and meet somebody and settle down and that sort of thing. They're just, looking for the best for all of us. And that's kind of a universal story for people who seriously choose the performing arts, because a lot of people, they talk about it, they dabble in it a little bit, but for those of us who actually have like, I'm now leaving home state USA or, home state Europe or wherever, and I'm going to Hollywood to really try this. Most people back there, but anywhere you're from, they've never met anybody that's really tried to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously, if you've more than tried to do it, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is I think the thing kind of shifts a little bit once your folks are able to now see you on TV, and there's like kind of a melding of the, of the worlds. One of the very first times that my family saw me, all these folks back east watched a movie that I was in, with the great title of Psycho Cop Returns,
There's the
otherwise
cup.
known as, you know, or Psycho Cop 2, because they needed another Psycho Cop. Of course, the world was demanding it. But I got shot in the head in that film, and I literally had one of my youngest brother call me. He was rewinding the video over and over again, laughing his ass off while he was watching me get shot over and over and over again. So, and then of course he wanted to know if I ever met any stars. Or did you meet any real actors?
Yeah, that's the back home stories. I got a funny story too, related to that.
Please.
So early on, I did a small spot on America's Most Wanted, and there was 3 criminals that they were looking for.
Right.
They had the identities of 2. One of them actually was someone I went to college with, so one of the actors.
Okay.
So not the actual criminal, but and then so they had 2, but they didn't know the third person's identity, and that was my character.
Right.
And we were in this car. It was a drug deal gone bad, and so they get to the point where they show the pictures of the people that they're looking for, but they don't know the identity of the third, so they just roll my footage again. And I don't know why they did that, but my mom starts laughing and says, "Oh my God, they're coming for you." I'm like, "Don't even joke. Don't even joke, Mom. Don't even joke."
That's hilarious.
Well, sure enough, there were sedans, black sedans circling our house and all that. And it turns out that a neighbor called and said
Oh
that,
my God.
I say that now, there's like ambulance and sirens going, I don't know if you hear them or pick it up, but
I don't, but I totally. So a neighbor dropped a dime on you. They turned you in, hoping for the reward money.
I think so, yeah. And I can see the confusion because they had nothing else to go off of.
That is so funny.
They offered me a card too that said I could put it on my wallet, and if I ever get arrested, they could say this is just the guy playing the guy.
That's
so
get out of jail free, like
exactly.
a Monopoly.
Do not arrest,
That is that is wow. That is terrific. That is terrific. Now, that's kind of funny because you and I actually have something in common there, because the very first acting job that I ever got paid for was on America's Most Wanted. Now, do you remember the year or year that you did yours? What year would have that?
Wow, it would have been
around
in the 2000s for sure. I would say like 2005, 6.
Okay,
it was a while ago.
Yeah. Okay,
I was still in Miami at the time.
Okay. So I did my America's Most Wanted in 1989.
Woo.
When before the turn of the century, kids, and the host was Robert Stack, and if you and I think he was the original host. Robert Stack. One of the reasons why this is such a great memory for me, Robert Stack was Elliot Ness in The Untouchables in the series in the 1950s, and Robert Stack goes back to the golden era of Hollywood. So the way I kind of like to look at it is when I showed up in Hollywood in 1986, and when I met Robert Stack, I was like, I can't believe that I'm getting to act, even though at the primary enactment show, still having an interchange with Robert Stack. He's sitting on a desk doing an introduction. I'm in the background doing an interrogation. but it was with this guy from the golden era of Hollywood. And then, of course, he ends up in the movie Airplane, one of the
Oh
most
yeah.
raucous comedies of all time. And so anyway, I just have very warm feelings about that show, altogether.
I love the old Hollywood. Like that's I had a chance, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but I
No,
had a
no, no, we
chance.
have no agenda.
No
No
agenda.
agenda.
I love it. Well,
Tell me.
I had this one chance. I worked on this gig one time, but I was the most excited to work on this gig because it had to do with a senior citizens home. It was a sitcom, audience and all, and it
Right,
had
right.
all these stars of people that I remember from back in the day, and I was so excited to be there. Vicki Lawrence,
Oh, wow. From the
Ed
Carol
Begley
Burnett
Jr.
show.
Oh yeah,
What?
Ed Begley
who-
Jr. was there.
Oh, wow. Okay, great, great.
Leslie
Yeah.
Jordan, God rest his soul.
Yes, absolutely.
One of my favorites though, Jamie Farr was there, and I've
Oh,
loved Jamie Farr from MASH,
from
and
MASH, of course. Toledo,
yeah,
Ohio.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was just a day of like, it was really funny because I wanted to hear some history, but I heard a lot of, when did you have your surgery? I had mine here. How big is your prostate? So it was a lot of that kind of that talk.
Let me say, first of all, that's great. And I'm glad you dropped those names because that also gives me a better idea of your influences. I mean, if you're referencing, Jamie Farr, we're talking about MASH, one of the greatest sitcoms in the
All
history
time.
of all time. We never missed it in the Bean household. I would be there with my older brother Jeff. It was his absolute favorite show. I loved the show. We never missed it. Ed Begley Jr., who was a neighbor of mine when I lived in Studio City, um, and he was one of the before everybody went alternative fuel, before everybody thought it was a good idea to look out for the environment, Ed Begley Jr. was doing it all with the solar panels and riding a bike to the studio and
Wow.
getting he had like like first gen electric car from Honda. So I mean, these are the kind of things when you mention. I love it when people such as yourself who have had these experiences in LA and Hollywood, because I've been blessed to have cut a very wide swath over a very long time. And these people mean a lot to me, and they obviously mean a lot to you. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Now, so one of the early movies that I did, I can even, okay, you'll love this title, Ozzy. You ready? Beverly Hills Body Snatchers.
Oh my. Okay. Is
Okay,
this horror
Beverly
B
Hills.
movie?
Well, a comedic be a comedic version of that when I tell you who the stars were. I was not the star of that. It might have been like my first real speaking role in a feature film. I can't remember, but I remember going on set, and the first guy that I met was Vic Tayback. If you remember that show called Alice about the
Yeah.
diner and the
Oh yeah.
old and Mel's Diner and the old cook
Kiss my
and
grits. Yeah.
Kiss My Grits,
Yeah.
absolutely. That whole thing. So Vic Tayback was the star of that. That was his diner. So and he was an old timey actor, a terrific actor. The other guy that was there was Frank Gorshin, who was the original Riddler in the television series Batman from the 60s.
Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah. And he's also like this guy
Oh,
was like a man of a thousand voices. So, I mean, and then there were probably half a dozen other of these folks, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm good with this. This one will do it for me. But I had just had some great conversations. That's where I learned about how much time it takes to do a feature film, and in between takes as they were setting up the camera, I had a chance to just have these great conversations and they were great. They were just terrific guys, and they were willing to take a young lad under their wing and really, talk to me. I had questions, they answered them. So, that was a great experience.
I
So,
love that because it's like you have to try to find a way where you don't seem annoying,
right.
but eager that you
Yes.
you want their opinion, you want their advice.
Yeah.
And I had my fill of it on that particular shoot, which was great because they were awesome. So yeah.
Well, I can see that because you are an ingratiating person, and I know this personally. And really, I do think you could probably go on any set with any star anywhere, and nobody's going to think you're horning in or you're out of place or you're out of turn by asking a question or having a conversation. You and I have both run into people on sets where, they go running and screaming toward the star because,
Oh
their
yeah.
mind is blown, and maybe they've been asked to leave the set, or leave them alone or whatever. But yeah. So I think that that's an innate thing, and it's also a comfort. I mean, you're probably I'm interpreting this and I'll talk about where you and I have worked together on a few different projects. But you're probably very comfortable on a set and or seem very much at home to other people who work with you. Are you comfortable on a film set?
Absolutely. I think it just depends on the situation or what the action will be. Obviously,
Yeah.
if it's like a nude scene or less clothing, just amps up the nerves a little bit,
Okay,
uh,
wait. Have you done many of those, Ozzy?
I have not fully nude, but
Okay.
I
Okay,
have
right.
had there's a commercial I did for
Okay.
MTV that required
A little
a
bit of some
loincloth.
more,
Yeah.
a little more of something. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was, those kinds of things, or any kind of love making or anything,
Right.
uh I'm not necessarily nervous. I just want to make sure, it's like, do I have my banana on me?
Right.
Don't eat the tuna, that kind of
In
stuff.
the actor's toolkit, when you read in an early book that I read, it said make sure you got your mouth rinse or chewing gum, spearmint gum or something with you if you have, even if you're not doing a kissing scene, because if you're going to get close with an actor, if you're doing like a two
Yeah.
shot there, you don't want anybody saying, "Oh my God, can somebody have a talk with that guy?"
You definitely don't want, and I've had my share of people I've had that close where it's like, you
Yeah,
had Sanka this morning, I can tell,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah,
they,
yeah,
but those things, like, that's what makes me nervous. But I feel strangely at home when I'm on set. I feel like
yeah,
I'm in my element once I
yes,
can touch everything in all the areas. If it's a hot set, I don't want to move anything, but if this is my home, I'm touching things and I'm feeling like
right,
it's
right,
comfortable. Um, I'm once I open my mouth the first or second time, get those
yeah,
lines out and just vomit it
right,
out, then I'm fine.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that what makes me nervous is just more, what is the activity that'll be occurring.
Right, right. Absolutely. No, and I'm with you there. I had an opportunity in one of my early films. I just couldn't believe that I ended up being the playing the boyfriend of the lead woman who ends up getting kidnapped. It was a war picture. Uh, it was a war picture, and I'm playing a Marine sergeant, and she's also a Marine, so uh, she's going on patrol, and I get we have a very small kissing scene, nothing overdone or anything like that, but the usual kissing scene when a couple leaves another. In this case, she's going out into a perilous combat patrol, and I'm staying back at base camp. But fortunately, her name is Suzanne Solari, terrific actress. Did a whole bunch of stuff in the '80s, maybe early '90s. Um, definitely she was a genre actress, is a genre actor is the way I want to put it. She found her niche. But she said to me, and she was very friendly. She was like a sister to me, which is always kind of funny when you have these relationships with actors or actresses, and maybe you just have this pal thing. And we were pals like for days before we had to do our kissing scene. And before we went on, after lunch, okay, we're going to shoot the thing. She just kind of whispered in her ear, I'll never forget. She said, "Don't forget, Dave Bean, make sure you have fresh breath because we're going to do a few takes here." And I was like, of course, Suzanne, of course. Then I ran back to craft services, grabbed a whole bunch of Wrigley spearmint gum, and
Now,
but
do you find it harder? I think when it comes to like those intimate scenes, I'd rather not. I'd rather us be closer to strangers than friends. And it's a strange thing because once you cross that line, it becomes weirder and much harder for me to, But if we're a total stranger, I don't know if that says anything about me, but um, but I don't know.
Actually, I get it completely because I think once you have yeah, it's kind of like you're gonna, be kissing a really good friend, and that's an awkward thing. We
Mhm.
have this relationship, but yeah, you might, I would think you'd be in danger of breaking each other up laughing wise if you're kissing somebody that you know.
Yep.
Um, I would think that would be the greatest danger. So I can see that. I will tell you that I have with Suzanne, and with Suzanne, I probably worked on, I think that might have been the first film that I worked on with her, but I think I probably worked on two or three other movies with her. I don't think we were ever romantic with one another, but she really became like, she was like what I refer to as like one of my early Hollywood sisters. We couldn't wait to hang with each other, couldn't wait to have lunch with each other. But I can definitely see that most of the time when I've had kissing scenes, it has been with complete strangers. And I think I hadn't thought about it, but I think I like your point. Is I much prefer it that way because you're just professional. We know what we got to do to get through the scene, and let's do it. The exception to the rule is I would say is an actress named Judy Clement, who
I know
played a
that name.
character.
Yeah,
Yeah, she played a character named Fiona Fitzgerald in a show called Mrs. Fitzgerald is Missing,
that's right. Okay.
and I played her husband. And eventually you ended up by some miraculous casting or whatever on the show as well. But
I remember.
you but uh, Judy and I had our scenes. I remember in our very first episode, the very first scene when we didn't know each other, where we had to do like a couple waking up in bed and kissing each other good morning. But she's such a pro, and I'd like to think that I learned a thing or two from the pros that I watched, that it just was what it was. And that by the time we ended up in later episodes having kissing scenes, by now we were pals. I mean, because we worked so many scenes together, and I was directing. But for us, it just made it easier because now you can skip through the bullshit. You're a pro, I'm a pro. We know what we need to accomplish in the scene here. We know why we're doing this. This also speaks toward Ozzy, and you can speak a little bit toward this as well, um, about the more technical aspects of acting, how you pull off being that emotionally engaged seemingly to the audience, but yet there are technical things that you need to accomplish. Getting your mark, remembering your lines, not blocking the other actor from the camera. Um, this is my roundabout way of asking you, did you receive any training of any kind?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so tell me, so you switched your major over to theater, and was that the first training that you got in the craft?
In the craft, yes. So, but most of it was theater. And I remember we did a lot of work. We studied various different methods.
Mm-hmm. Anyone in
Acting.
particular
We
lingered with
pretty
you?
much did it. We did all of them.
Yeah,
I've studied all of them.
yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of Meisner.
right.
It's just the repetition part. I do find myself doing it sometimes. I for me, if anyone takes any advice from me,
Mm-hmm.
learn all of them and apply it
Right.
where necessary. It's not always going to be one shot for everything. I think there's certain things that you can use. There's certain times I use Meisner and I'm not a big fan, but it works. There's other
Mm-hmm.
times I use Uta Hagen or some psychological gesture, or I'm not really a big fan of method either. But
Right.
if I had to adhere to one most, I mean, I like a lot of Stella Adler stuff. I mean,
Right. Right.
um,
Right.
I like my imagination. I like to kind of use that, and
Yeah.
it helps me more than to dwell on my past. I think I deal with my problems too quickly to use a lot of that.
Understood.
But
Understood.
I did study a lot of that in theater. I did a couple of shows in theater. I feel like I got a great foundation. But then when I started to do auditions for film and commercials, I was too big. It was like they were like, no, the camera's right here. Where are you going?
Right.
Hit your
Right. Right.
mark.
Right.
So I didn't know any of those things, and I had to prepare. So I went to a school called it was the Acting Studio in South Florida,
Okay.
And that's where I learned a lot of my commercial and film work.
Right.
I spent about 2 years doing some work there. Um, got much better at my
Right.
auditions and things. And then
Clearly.
I started to do more work there. And um, from there, at some point, I went to UMass Amherst to finish my bachelor's degree.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. That's
yeah,
great. I did not UMass. That's terrific. Yeah.
yeah, I did that. And then after that, it was just individual classes here,
Right. Right.
workshops, things here in LA.
Right.
Nothing degree based outside of UMass, but it was just more
Right.
like going with different instructors. Carolyn Berry, I don't know if you remember her from back in the day.
Right.
So studying a lot with her, but I did, a lot of great stuff. From there now, I mean, now I'm studying a little bit more of other areas of film. I'm actually going for my MFA right now
Are
for,
you really?
for
That's
screenwriting.
awesome.
Yeah,
Good for you. That's terrific. Always engaged, always studying. Especially as an actor, you always want to be, in class. You always want to be looking. It's kind of like what I always equate it. I'm also an athlete, and I played baseball for many years, and I couldn't imagine if the only time I ever got up to bat was on game day. So obviously you wanted to make sure that when it wasn't game day, you're in the batting cages taking swings and taking
exactly.
grounders and always practicing. And I always, well, it was drilled into me eventually, that the same thing with acting. You always want to be studying. You always want to have a script in hand. You always want to have, just you got to keep that instrument, as it's sometimes used, but indeed I do believe it to be an instrument. Um, you always want to keep that lubricated and functional so that you can step into anything at any time. And that I just created a good segue,
Ooh.
sometimes referred to as the segue king by myself. Um, but being ready for anything at any time is sometimes a great foundation for somebody who might be an improviser or a sketch artist, a sketch performer, a sketch writer. When was it that you started doing sketch comedy?
Oh, so can't remember the year exactly, but I was gonna maybe about 10 years ago. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
solid decade that I did a lot of improv work and sketch, but I
Right.
remember taking some classes with I don't know if you know the actor Donovan Scott.
Okay. Heard
Um
the name. Heard the name.
he was in Popeye with Robin
Oh, wow.
Williams,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
the original Police Academy,
Right. Right.
we're
Wow.
we're still
Okay.
friends to this day.
Great. Terrific.
But he's a phenomenal instructor, and I did a couple of levels of improv with him, and I got my foundational work and started to understand a little bit more about what improv was all about, and
Right.
then went to other schools. So I went to some of the
Right.
major schools. Thought it was good to have on
Like
your
what? Like
resume.
which schools, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I went to UCB afterwards in Los
Oh, okay.
Angeles. So I
Yeah.
did those 4 levels. I went to the Groundlings
Major
afterward.
leagues. Yeah.
Then I went to the Pack Theater, and I was on house teams for each one of these. But I had a blast with each one of them. I
Yeah.
got to the point where I was doing I had a team. We worked together
Yeah.
for a couple of years in the Neon Venus Theater. I don't know if you remember this. It's a
I
very
do. It's not struck. It's been a lot of years that I was there, and a lot of things have come and gone. Where is that located?
So it was a
Or
couple blocks away from Groundlings, and a lot of
oh, okay.
the Groundlings is kind of weird because you're not really allowed to perform unless you're in the Groundlings or part of their
Right.
Sunday company. So all
Right.
the work that you don't really get to perform in front of people unless
Yeah.
you're doing a final showcase. So most of those students would go to the Neon Venus and perform there.
Right.
So we would have house teams, and every Friday, every single Friday for maybe a good solid 7-8 years, I had a show
Oh,
Friday night at 8 o'clock, and our team scout would
fantastic.
perform. And that's where I got a lot of my training. It's like I fell flat on my face quite a few times. I laughed a lot of my stuff. I've had
Yeah.
big mistakes happen, and then I've had wonderful successes. And I think that's important to have because it's great to have to be able to think on your toes. Every audition I go to now has
Right.
some form of improv or something that they want
Yep.
that's off the cuff, something a
Yep.
little bit different than what's already pre-planned.
Yep.
And if you're able to come up with it on the spot and trust
Yep.
your instincts and feelings enough, improv will teach you that, and that will help get you some success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah. That's great.
I will say that the last Carnival commercial with Shaq that you were
Yeah.
referencing at the top, that whole audition was improv. The
Yeah.
whole thing
Yeah.
was improv, and
Yeah.
that was 2.5 weeks of work all over the Caribbean on a ship. And
I was going to ask about that if you were actually on that ship.
we were, yes. I
Yeah.
figured out then that I'm not a big fan of boats. I loved it though. I had a wonderful time, but
Great.
but
Great.
boats are 2 weeks is
Yeah.
good. Anything more than that, I don't know if I could handle.
Right. 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 No, I'm the same way. I keep me on dry land unless I'm swimming. I'm happy to be swimming in the
Me too.
water in the
Yeah.
ocean and stuff like that. But I don't need a boat. I'm good. I'm good. So yeah, because this is the thing that I would think about you, Ozzie, is that again, I don't remember the audition that we would have done together, where you probably obviously blew me away because I cast you in Mrs. Fitzgerald is Missing. So obviously you did that.
I do
But
remember. If you want me to tell that story at some point,
we if you don't mind, because refresh my memory and hopefully I
oh,
wasn't
we
too
met.
terrible.
We were in Tujunga Village in the Aroma Cafe. I
Right.
don't know if you remember this, but we sat together and we read the script. The place was packed, so there was a
Yeah.
bunch of
Yeah.
people everywhere. It was like maybe dusk, and there were
This
people
sounds, by
around.
the way, this parenthetically, this sounds like this is how I know it's absolutely the truth, because that's how I audition people is just going to the places I like to hang. And if people are around, you got to you live the life of the character. Sometimes there's going to be people around. So
Exactly, yeah.
yeah,
And with this character with Bustamante, I felt like he was such a departure from who I am normally, because I feel
right,
like I'm more,
right.
nice guy kind of thing, but Bustamante is kind of
Absolutely.
sour and very very angry, very bitter sometimes. And
Yep.
I remember playing him that when we were there, I think I slammed the table a couple of times, and it was like we might have been bothering the people around us. And I think we moved tables just so I could be a little bit louder towards the back of the restaurant.
Great. Great.
And I was able to do that. But I remember that was saying to myself, and I was like, it's just strange. I don't know if I can do this in front of all these people. And then I realized I was like, it's an opportunity, balls to the wall. You just got to do it. Who cares? Who
Absolutely.
cares what people think? Just do it.
100% on that. No two ways about it. That is, a lot of people who do casting will get like a casting facility, bring people in there. The usual casting stuff. You do the sign-in sheet. You sit down with everybody else. It's a very quiet atmosphere. I'm the exact opposite of that, because I always thought if you want to see if somebody's fearless, you check that box. If
Yep.
you want to see if somebody's going to find their character and deliver that character with everybody else's real life going on around you, I want to see your real life going on here too. And obviously you did that. So that I'm sure that happened. And I would have picked the Aroma Cafe. That's a real a real writers hangout. So I would think that the people who would be at a place like the Aroma Cafe were very used to writers and actors doing whatever it is that they do. Same thing. One of my other favorite places where I cast lots of people is at Priscilla's coffee shop in Burbank, there on Riverside. And I can never remember the Western themed coffee shop across from the LA Equestrian Center, because it was in walking distance of where I live next to the Equestrian Center. So, hey, convenience, it's a thing. But this is great because I'm glad that you mentioned that the character that you played, Emilio Bustamante, is a real, a hard ass bad LAPD cop, bad to the bone. And so how in the world did I ever come up with Ozzie Rodriguez for this? If you might recall what I told you, I'll tell it again just so the people watching would know, is that I had an acting teacher named of Marissa Harba, who has since become an acting guru industry of her own. She has a great facility there in Hollywood, I believe.
Oh,
She,
it's on Vermont. It's I forgot the name of it.
it's yeah, it's about the work,
About the work, yes.
about
It's
the
by the
work.
AT&T building, I think, around there or something.
There you go. So before she had that facility, she had acting students, and I think she was teaching primarily out of the complex over on Santa Monica. But she would also teach at the SAG Conservatory at AFI. And I was a pretty big proponent of utilizing those classes, not the least of which SAG actors who might be watching this. The classes at the SAG Conservatory don't cost you anything, and you can, and in retrospect, and just now that I'm, I've been through the wars in all fronts, I would say, not every instructor that you're going to get there is going to, open up the doors for you and help you find something specifically. But every now and again, you'd run into somebody, in my mind, like a Marissa Harba, a couple of times, who was able to, have me go further and deeper in a particular scene than I'd ever gone before. And I was really impressed with her. And I think we had kind of a simpatico as she was directing and I was acting. And so she contacted me and asked me. She had a show with Lucky Moore called "Fuck I Love You." It's F
Yep.
like ampersand hashtag or whatever.
He doesn't spell it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So So F word I love you. I guess it's too late anyway. It doesn't matter. There's no sense.
You can bleep it out.
Yeah, and I don't believe in the bleep. So
love it.
So not for this audience, but anyway, she cast me in that to just do like a one shot thing in one of the episodes. So I thought, oh, I better just I want to give the show a look. So I looked at some of the episodes, and lo and behold, one of the actors that impressed me the most was you. And if it was either a reoccurring role or if you were a regular, I don't know. But you were in a number of different episodes. Where amidst all of the tension of this drama, you were the comic relief there, and at least from what I remember, you brought some genuine laughs, and I just like, wow, okay, this is a good show. I'm going to be glad that I'm participating in the show because they had some really good actors, but this guy's pretty funny. Made me laugh. I totally forgot about that. Moved on to the next thing. Started putting together my show, which was a kidnap drama. Was thinking I just needed somebody to be this to counterbalance Robert Dominic Jones, who was playing a hard ass LAPD cop. I needed another guy to butt heads with him who could be as bad or worse. And for some reason, the thing that stuck with me in my head, and maybe you've heard this too, is that for actors who have specialized and only done drama, they used to say, I don't know if they still do, it's very difficult to get a dramatic actor to be funny. But almost always you can get a comedic actor to do drama. And I don't know if it's because comedians, the stereotype is that they're drawing upon a lot of angst in their own life. And all you got to do is cut away the comedy, bring the angst out, and here you've got some angry stuff going on. But I was thinking, and I went down a list of people that I thought would be terrific. And then when I saw your name, I was like, this guy made an impression. This guy made an impression. Let's bring him in, or at least over to the Aroma Cafe for an audition. And anyway, that's how I found you and offered you the role. And I was lucky and blessed enough that you took it. And you gave to me in a whole bunch of episodes, at least 5, I think 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah, 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah. You gave me one of the best badass performances.
Thank you.
This character, yeah, it's a big reason why. I mean, it just being realistic, it's a low budget show that I was fortunate enough to do. Somebody gave me the keys to a very small, and I wouldn't say a kingdom, but here's the keys. Here's do a show. Here's a small budget. Go and make it. It's all yours. Do what you want to do. So I got to work with the people that I wanted to work with. We made it. It got out there, and I'm very happy with what we created there. But I'm very, very happy with the character that you gave us in that show. So this
Well,
gives
dude,
me a chance to say
a lot of
thank
it
you.
was you though. Thank you for giving us the freedom for that, because I mean, you and Robert together, you guys were like, I know I, I asked a lot of questions, I know, for this character. And I knew from the start that guy, I knew that we weren't the same person. And so I was
Right.
like, okay, I get to sink my teeth into this and really do something different. But what stuck out to me was that you said, you wanted that butting heads.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I know that you wouldn't just want two people that were hard asses just butting heads as hard asses.
Right. Right.
So I took what I did best, which was just kind of, I'm going to be a hard ass, but with a smile. And I'm just going to be a little cheekier with
Oh
mine.
yeah. Oh
And it
yeah.
annoyed him so much.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
kind of like, here's a wound. I'm just going to keep digging at that
Yep.
wound.
Yep.
And I felt like it worked so much.
Yes.
And I remember we talked about it afterwards a couple of times, and he said, that those were some of his favorite scenes that he worked on, because we
Yeah.
really just let each other have it. But if we didn't have that freedom and you didn't provide that direction, I don't think I would have gotten to that point. So thank you,
Yeah.
because it was great to have.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Part of, one of the things that I was learning as a director and trying to pay very close attention to those directors whom I had respected over the years, and I was blessed enough to be on set with like I mean, it's not hyperbole to say that I've like right next to some of the greatest directors of our filmmaking era. So I would just I would shadow them, even though that wasn't, and that is an actual thing that one does, is one wants to matriculate to become a director, is you become a shadow on set and learn that way. Well, I didn't know, I wouldn't have known that that was a thing. I just shadowed. I wouldn't, when I was done with whatever acting stuff I had, I just wouldn't leave. I just like, just get near the camera crew. I just wanted to hear them talk to each other. I wanted to hear how the director talked to the DP, how he talked to the actors, and and what you said to them, and what, if there was any magic. And what I learned was there isn't any real magic to it. 90% of the job of a director just comes past the right people. Ask the right people, you know, give them a little nudge, a little poke now and again, just to keep the ship going in the right direction. Stand back and let it happen. And so I would say that if I'm good at anything, it's I picked the right players.
I think you
So
did too. So
yeah,
kudos to you for that. That's great.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, no, Robert Dominic Jones, because Bob and I are very close friends. Even though now we live in, he's in Las Vegas, I'm in New Mexico. Um, but we're still really close. We still have some projects that we're hoping to get to in the not too distant future. But we, so on occasion we'll just text. I'll text him about the scene of you guys in the backyard in Tarzana when we filmed on that very hot day. Where
Oh yes,
yeah, that was a brutal day. It was just you
in
two. It
the
was like
police outfit. I remember that.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep, yeah. And in one of the scenes, when you made a point to him and you took a bite out of a sandwich or a burrito or something, and you had a slice of meat or something hanging out, that's the cheekiness that you were talking about. And that just, because knowing Bob the way I know him in real life, his head would have exploded if anybody ever talked to him that way. And you made him able to bring the real stuff out of him. So that's just, you great scene partners for one another. So, I'm very grateful to have had both of you on that show.
It's great. It was an actor's dream, honestly, because again, the departure from yourself. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
kind of part of why we do this, is like, I don't want to sound so bitter or so, depressing, but sometimes we get tired of our own skin and we just sort of want to shed that and be somebody else. And just,
yeah, yeah,
I don't think I ever lost that as a kid. I've always wanted to play, and
yeah,
it's like, let's dress up. Let's,
yeah,
you be this and I be this, and let's pretend, and I don't, I hope I never lose it, honestly. I mean, I'm in
you
my
won't.
40s already, but I hope not.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
um,
you never will, because it's at this point, it's in you. It is, I was gonna say it's in your DNA. No, it is your DNA. It's my DNA. I'm 20 years in the future, you from from a creative artist perspective, and I can tell you, it never every single day I wake up, it's just there. Whether I have a character to work on or not, whether I've been cast in something or it's it's the desert right now, and I don't foresee any work coming up in the that's just part of our life. But when I wake up 24/7, doesn't even matter what I do. I'm an actor first. I'm a creative artist first and foremost. At this point, what I do love, and you must be finding this now, especially since people can see your work so readily, is, you know, is that at this point, when I was younger, people, so how long are you going to give this thing a chance? How long, when people would, and every now and again, I love, like Billy Crudup, one of my favorite actors on the planet. Uh, Billy Crudup said that he first would give himself 6 months, and then he didn't do anything in like six. I believe this is what he said. Then he after 6 months, he's like, well, okay, a year, and then he's like, okay, well, no, a year's too quick. And then things started happening. But the point is that wouldn't you and I have been sadder if we just walked away from this when we were younger
Oh
and
God,
took
yeah.
where
would I go? I mean, Florida's
right,
not my life anymore, and
right,
I I've invested my whole life in this, and even if it ended with the success that I've had right now, I would still be happy. I think I don't ever want to lose. I just feel like it's not giving up, but I don't think people realize. Like I think they realize that you have to be the rock status in order to call that success. But
yeah,
the threshold of success is where I place that mark.
correct,
And if I place it here right now, and I said I'm here, I'm fine, I'm good. I'd like to move that mark a little further for the next 2 years or so. I set my own success. So
right,
if people don't believe that, then it's on them. But that's I have to do that for myself to keep myself sane.
yeah,
But the fact is that we're getting paid to do what we love to do. It may not be, in the millions where we can sustain a mansion and all this, but that's okay because that's not why we do it. We do
right,
it because we love the work.
right,
I want to rest my head easy at the end of the day and say, God, what a great day I had.
yeah,
Um, that's what I want.
yeah, yeah. Well, listen, you're absolutely right. You get to do that. I get to do that. It is a blessing. Um, and and it also is, yeah, there are fights that you fought, fights that I fought, some battle, we have our battle scars, but you've won the war, my friend. You've won the war.
Oh,
you
thank you.
know yeah, absolutely. You have accomplished, most people who I always said, most people who give this a serious professional try are done in 6 months to a year, because it's just so difficult. You have to have a certain kind of tough person, some, rawhide, outside and inside, because this beats you up all over the place constantly. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the great joys that you're going to get to experience, and I will say in all hubris, one of the great joys that I have experienced is eventually you'll cross the line and you'll no longer uh, I'll always be ambitious. I'll always be looking for the next great project that I want to do. But I'm no longer aspirational. I no longer need to explain to anybody what it is that I'm trying to do. I've done it and I
Mm-hmm.
do it and I'll always do it. So because I just hung in there and refused to go away. You're Ozzie, you are never going away from this because it's in your DNA, and it's probably why I wanted to have you as a guest here on the Dave Bean is a C-list actor, and if we had, as we will in post production, we'd hear the music starting to come in right now, and it's at something, hey, that's the tune. But it's this time, I want to thank you, Ozzie, for spending this hour or so with me and sharing your at least a portion of your creative journey. And I know what I want to do is I want to do another season of this, and I want to have you back so we can dive a little deeper into more specifics, because yours is a really interesting journey, and you're like one of the most fun people that I know. And we didn't get into as much of the comedy. That's on me because I just got so caught up in your story. But I want to get into so I almost want to say I just want to do a comedy episode with you, because you are one funny human being naturally.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
would love to come back for a part 2, do a comedy,
Great.
little comedy special. We'll do it. Yeah.
All right, that sounds great. So at this time, what I do at the end of every episode, because I'm never quite able to find the little red button where you end the Zoom session. There it is. And before I press the button once again, Ozzie Rodriguez. Oh, do you, any projects coming up or anything else? We talked about the commercials, which I know when people are looking at this right now, I know that they're saying, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. Of course I do." But is there anything that you're working on that you can share?
There's just commercials out right now. Carnival Cruise Line is playing quite a bit, all
Yep.
over TV. I have a drug commercial called.
That's the one. That's the one. Other one that
Yeah.
I've seen you in a zillion times. Yes.
That one, oh God, yeah. I'm selling bipolar medication for sure, like left and right.
That's good.
And audiobooks too. I just did a book called Blackouts, and it just won this last year's National Book Award for fiction.
Congratulations.
More for the
Awesome.
author, but at least you get to hear
Awesome.
my voice if you want to hear the book.
Absolutely. And to a certain amount, a certain percentage of people who, like myself, love audiobooks, you're the book. You're the story. You're the storyteller. See that? King of the segues. See how that works? Take a note, young man. But anyway, you are the storyteller. Thank you for sharing some of your story with us today, Ozzie. And I will be in touch very, very shortly. Okay.
Love you, Dave Bean. Thank you.
Love you too, buddy. All right. Take care. Thank you. All right. Here I go. I always do this, and then I freeze like these do the old TV shows, waiting for somebody to like. Okay. Zoom gives you 2 buttons. Yes. End the meeting for all. All right. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.
All right.